Okay, hello everybody. I am Erica from Dogwise, and I'm joined this morning by Kyla Denault, who is the author of Brain Games for Your Dog, the wonderful book that gives you amazing ideas for offering enrichment to your dog to offer mental stimulation for them. So, Kyla, welcome for joining us. Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in dog training, and then why did you decide to write this book? And who would benefit from reading this book?
Perfect. Well, thanks, Erica, for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here and talk about brain games for your dog. My career in dog training started in the early 2000s. I started a cage-free dog kennel, and I was working full time. And I had my dog Storm at the time, an old guy, and a colleague's like, "Hey, can you babysit my dog?" And then another colleague's like, "Hey, I heard you're babysitting Leo. Can you babysit Starbucks?" So it kind of progressed from there. And I was like, wow, there's a real need for cage-free environment for boarding. And so I opened up one of the first cage-free kennels in Ottawa, and I was working full-time and running a full-time business. So as you can imagine, by the time 2009 hit, I was just burnt out. And, cage-free kennel is 24/7, 365. So not much of a chance to have a life. So I sold the business. And then, I had a great career, a really great career, but, was always looking for that side thing that really kind of interested me. And it just kind of dog training, I kind of stumbled into it. I met a lady at the park that was having issues with her dog. I'm like, well, I owned a kennel for 7 years. I said, possibly I can help you out. And again, it just kind of went along there. And I decided to sort of do my dog training certification with a local business in Ottawa, Canada. And in 2019, I decided to leave a 20-year career in the past and do this full time. And it was when I had the time full time to really kind of build my business. The brain games stuff kind of started coming up because it was really starting to be quite popular in the dog training industry. And I was like, I love it. I love mental enrichment. And I decided to sort of write a book. And it started off with 150 ideas. And I still have it. I still got the spreadsheet with my ideas, but I was like, that's a lot of work. So I brought it down to 50 and decided to start off. There's going to be more to come, but started off with 50. And I was like, this is nothing. I'll write this book in 3 months. And it took me a year and a half to finally get it done. Because as you could see in the book, right, it's not just a book, but there's also some really fun videos as well. So, you scan that QR code, and any of the ideas that have a little play symbol has a video associated with it. So when you click on that QR code, all the ideas are alphabetical. So not only was it writing, it was also filming those. And exactly, that little play symbol.
Yeah. So,
and also too, for the e-version, if people are buying the e-version from you, those links are live within the document itself. So yeah.
Clever idea to add a QR code, let people scan it, have it be kind of an interactive thing, because so many of the time people, they Google canine enrichment ideas and it's a bit hit or miss, but to have 50, that's a lot of ideas that are all in here together and be able to, I love the index. Whenever we add this book, I always put the index because I want to show there's a lot of ideas in here. And you've even color coded at the top that if they're yellow, they're free. You don't have to spend any money to do these enrichment items for your dog, which is such a great thing. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, for everyone tuning in, if you want to go ahead and post a comment, let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have questions for Kyla or for me, questions about the book or about enrichment, please feel free to post a comment and we will answer those questions live today. So Kyla, you were saying it took a little bit longer to get this book than you thought. And as someone who's on the other side in the publishing, we have people all the time who come to us with this great idea and the manuscript's almost totally written. And then it takes a little while to get everything going. And like you said, these pictures are in color and the design and the layout is really beautiful. I think you really did a spectacular job, like I said, making it interactive and interesting. And I think that it's wonderful that you put this together. So thank you for taking the time to put that together.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a labor of love, and a big shout out to Anna Steinberg who designed. I decided to hire a graphic designer at that time to create this book, and showed her she was really great at taking the ideas out of my head. Coming up with the Enriched Dog logo. So Easy Breezy is kind of, to me, local, like in Ottawa, where in Rich Dog, I created that because I want to create more books and more online content, online courses. So just kind of brought it all together. I love what she did within the design of the book. And yeah, so big shout out to her for that design work. And I couldn't have done that without her. But I really wanted something simple, right? Something easy to read, fun for children as well, to sort of, whenever I'm working with clients, with kids, I'm like, have them sit there and pick an idea or two for their dog's meals this evening, and the kids love it. And yeah, it's an easy read. It was a lot of work, but I'm glad with the end result. All those photos and videos of Finley's my 4.5-year-old sheepadoodle. That's him in here, and most of them, yeah. And he's lying beside me right now. We went and did some enrichment this morning, so he's nice and tired. But yeah, all of those videos that you see there, I rented a cottage for 2 weeks, and I basically filmed all of those videos over a 2 week span, and doing all the editing myself and all of that stuff. So
You had a very enriched dog at the end of 2 weeks, didn't you?
he loves it. Like, Finley absolutely loves to use his nose, to use his brain. He's the smartest dog I've ever had. And he just thrives with all of these brain games. So yeah.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about that, like why
Sure.
enrichment is so important. And like you said, it's not just that they enjoy it, but they really thrive with the enrichment. So what if you wanted to define enrichment for people who are
Yeah.
tuning in and might be new to the term or not know exactly what it is, how would you describe that and why would you say that it's important?
Yeah. So a lot of times, how I describe canine enrichment or mental exercise is, a lot of times people think to tire out my dog, it's going for like a power walk, it's playing fetch, it's playing tug. So it's a lot of physical, right? It's a lot of adrenaline and adrenaline and adrenaline. So now you've got a dog that's up here, that's all jacked up, raring to go. And I tell folks, I'm like, how do you feel after you go to the gym, right? You feel energized after. Whereas if you spend a day, like when I was in the corporate world and I had to do budgets all day long, like I come home and I'm done. Like, I'm so tired. So that's how I equate sort of canine enrichment, is it's more of that mental power, which is really going to tire out your dog, versus the physical exercise. Physical exercise is definitely still important, but I would almost say mental enrichment is just a little bit more. And honestly, that is what is going to tire out your dog. So lots of my clients who have very high energy dog, and I've got one, Finley's a 9.5 out of 10. I have to engage him mentally, because otherwise he'd drive me crazy. Like, I knew for this interview, I needed him quiet. So this morning we went for a big, huge safari walk. We came home, he had enrichment breakfast and a whole bunch of different things. And then I thought that this was at 10 a.m. Ottawa time, and it was at 1. So 45 minutes ago, I brought him to a new environment. We went for a walk. So now he's passed out beside me. And that's what enrichment does for your dog. Yeah.
Well, and talk a little bit about a sniffari. So that's a term that's become very popular right now. So encouraging dogs to sniff on a walk, as opposed to a minute ago when you were talking about physical exercise.
Yeah.
So something I tell my dog training clients is, your dogs have twice as many legs as you. They're always going to walk further and faster. That's what we bred them to do for a long time.
Yeah.
So just walking with your dog next to you at your pace is kind of the equivalent of like going to the nursing home and walking next to people in a walker. Like, it's not very exciting, and it might be good company, but it isn't necessarily something that's going to get that physical need met. So how is a sniffari different as opposed to a normal walk where you're just walking your dog for physical exercise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you got to think, dogs have between 200 and 300 million scent receptors in their nose. We have 6 to 7 million. So imagine in the morning that smell of coffee or bacon. Your dog smells that, up to 50 times more than you do. So imagine going outside and having that sense of smell, right? Everything is so engaging. And when they're sniffing and using their nose, all those scent particles going up their nose, triggering the frontal part of their brain, the olfactory bulb, that is what is going to tire out your dog. And it is just so satisfying for them, right? It was their natural instincts to sniff and forage, and to let them do that. And especially breeds like the beagles and the hounds. And I mean, even Finley, a sheepadoodle, he loves, his nose is to the ground all the time. And it's just something that he absolutely loves. And the more that you let them sniff, by the time you get home, they should be tired. Now, I find no matter what, being outside, even though you spend 45 minutes, an hour on a safari walk, I find your dog still is a little bit overexcited when they get home. I come home, I either will scatter some food in the backyard, do a little scatter feed, or I'll do some training with Finley, and then boom, then he's done for like he is right now. Right?
Good for the morning, which is great. I did
Great
want
for the
to
morning. Yeah.
bring up one of our comments. We have Scarlett, who said, love this book. It's jam-packed with great ideas. Bonus, it's available in French too. So we do have a lot of people joining us from all over the country and all over the continent. And we've even got someone in the UK who's joining us today. So welcome to everyone who's joining us from everywhere.
Wow.
I love that this book is reaching so many people across a global audience. And as Scarlett did point out, you can download the ebook version. We do have it on Dogwise, so you will get a PDF, which, like you said at the beginning, in case anyone missed, there are links that you can click to watch videos. If you get the physical version, there's a QR code at the beginning and a link here where you can watch the videos that go along with the activities that are here in the book. So, and Leanne just commented and said, I bought a bunch of these books to give to my students. They find them invaluable. Yeah. Great idea, Leanne. We were talking about that as well at the beginning, that even getting kids involved and having the kids pick out an activity or two for their dog. That what brings to mind is what great positive reinforcement for the humans to be able to engage in that behavior and then encourage the behavior of finding more enrichment activities to benefit everybody in the family. So I think that's wonderful. Yeah, absolutely great.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, Kyla. And if anyone else has a question, go ahead and pop it in the comments and we'll ask it during our interview. But one thing I love about this book is most books you start at the beginning and you read it from the front to the back, but you can really kind of pop in anywhere and, you know, say, oh, I'm going to do that one today. But are there different levels of difficulty? Are there things that you would say, I would start with this one or I wouldn't start with this one because it might frustrate the dog? Where do you recommend people start? Or do you say, just pick a page, start anywhere and go from there? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think it depends on the dog. So if you've got something like a young puppy, you know, I was just at a client's house yesterday with like a 10-week-old Burmese mountain dog puppy. You know, you don't want to go anything too difficult as well too. Depends on your dog. You know, not all of these ideas are suitable for everybody or for all dogs. You know, Finley being older, I can give him a box without worrying about him eating anything. He's not a dog that will kind of ingest plastic or cardboard and things like that. So you have to sort of judge your dog and how they are and see what is suitable for them. So that's why in the book, there's all sorts of different ideas for all different levels. But usually if you're just starting in with enrichment, you know, you kind of want to go something a little bit easier. So if you've got like a snuffle mat or even taking a towel and just kind of rolling it and make it easy, right? Enrichment is not supposed to be frustrating for the dog. And I'm not a big fan of, you know, and I get it. People, you know, want a peace and quiet for some time. They want that half hour, 45 minutes of, you know, some quiet time. So that's when I would recommend like a stuffed Kong or a stuffed Topple, perhaps something to chew on or a licky mat if you want that extended time. But to me, with Finley, when I'm giving him his breakfast and dinner and he has not eaten a bowl in the last 2.5 years that he's been mine, I adopted him at 2. I always have something easy and then something more challenging. And he loves a challenge. But you'll see him when he starts, he'll kind of try to go for that easy kibble or easy thing that he can get. And then he'll go to the harder thing, try to get it out. Like, especially if I'm doing Russian dolls, I have it in the book where it's a box and a box and a box. You know, he'll kind of go to that, play with that, and then he'll kind of go off and find, you know, something easier again. So it really depends on your dog, the age too. And yeah, to me, it's all about fun. Like everything that I create, it's all about fun and really deepening that bond with you and your dog.
And I think that's the other thing too, is that you can always make it harder. So if your dog is, you know, tearing through an enrichment, maybe a box, the cardboard box really, really quickly, then if you're doing Russian dolls where you're stacking your boxes, can you put another box or can you make it a little bit harder? But I love that suggestion of having an easy one and a hard one, because I think that something we talk about a lot in positive reinforcement is, you know, being able to give the dogs choice, give them some agency. So we want them to engage in these items, and that's going to give us some feedback as to whether or not this engagement is preferable. Is this something you want to engage in, or is it so hard that you're like, oh, you know what, I give up. That's too much of a challenge. So exactly. I love that suggestion of having multiple enrichment items with different difficulty levels, which then probably will increase the time that your dog is busy and mentally enriched, which is wonderful.
Yeah. And I just want to say one quick thing too, is I'll tell my clients, if let's say your dog eats a cup of food, you know, at each mealtime, don't necessarily feel like you have to give them that whole cup in one shot, right? Let's say you're doing a snuffle mat and some of the, what do you call these, paper towel or toilet paper rolls. Maybe you give them half and you let them spend, you know, 5-10 minutes doing that. And then, you know, and then do another little quarter, right? You don't have to give them all their meal all at once. Is you can sort of give them a little bit to start and then kind of give them the rest of their meals, you know, as they go along.
That's a great idea. Great suggestion. We've got a couple of questions from Sandra, who's asking about laser pointers and bubbles.
Bubbles, yes.
Those are two really good questions, because when we talk about not building frustration in our learners, those are both things that the animal might not be able to catch. So when we're thinking about the hunting or predation sequence, and we're thinking about things that they're allowed to chase but not catch, do you have any suggestions or tips on those two items or things in that category?
Yeah. So bubbles is actually one of the ideas. It's on page 28. Bubbles are great, right? Because you can make some your own. You can add a little bit of flavor, chicken or beef broth. I also recommend, if you're using any type of broth, make sure it's no sodium. And if you're making some your own, you know, cut back on the onions and garlic, things like that. Try to make it as plain as can be. But I think bubbles is great, right? Because they can catch it, you know, and they'll get a little bit of that flavor in their mouth. The laser pointers, now I was guilty. My previous dog, Breezy, she was a German Shepherd mix. That's how I came up with my name, Easy Breezy. She was my girl, you know, she was 12 and a half years old. And she loved the laser pointer. And she was big on anything flashing. Like if you had a watch on, she'd be like, and I didn't know it at the time, but I played quite a bit of laser pointer with her. I'd be in my kitchen, you know, Ottawa winters, it's minus 35 outside. So I would just sit there back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it would tire her out, right? Because of like that crazy running. But laser pointers create so much frustration for dogs because it's an object that they can't catch, right? And it could become obsessive. And what I realized with her is when I played it often, she was at the back door as soon as it would get dark, and she'd just sit there. And I put her outside and she would just sit at the window. She wasn't going to the bathroom. She wasn't doing anything else. She just wanted that laser. And then I realized, ooh, this is not good. This is not good. It could easily become obsessive compulsive disorder with a dog. So any of those flashing lights, I've worked with clients whose dogs became very obsessed with that. And it's like, we got to eliminate as much as that flashiness as we can in the house. So yeah, laser pointers, I do not recommend at all for dogs, unfortunately.
I really like that point you brought up, because when we look at enrichment, we're not just looking to keep our dogs busy or to get them tired. We also want to look at their overall behavior. So you and I were talking earlier about Dogwise has two books, Canine Enrichment for the Real World and Canine Enrichment for the Real World, the workbook, which is a kind of light version. And both of them talk about how Look at that. You've got it right there.
Oh,
It's
of
a
course,
great
yeah.
book within arm's
A
reach.
great book. Yeah.
When we look
You
in
get
the,
both of them, right?
that's right. Get them both. You need all of
Yeah.
well-rounded canine enrichment understanding. And that book doesn't provide games and activities. Those books both provide a framework for understanding your dog's behavior as a whole and making sure all of their needs are met, their physical needs, their mental needs, their sense of safety, their ability to have some control and agency in their lives. And I really love how you were able to zoom out and look at, was it Breeze or Breezy?
Breeze.
Breeze's,
Yeah.
yeah, look at her behavior as a whole of what was happening before and after. What was this doing overall? Yes, she might have been getting physically and maybe even mentally exhausted chasing that laser pointer, but what was it doing overall to her behavior? And was that something that was desirable? And that was not, you realize that was not a healthy choice for her.
No.
And like you were saying, Ottawa winters get pretty cold. There's a lot of snow, so you are limited in your activity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Scarlett mentioned that she gives this book to her as a prize and obedience class students, but also to owners whose dogs have just had surgery.
Yes.
And help keep them mentally active during recovery. So cold winters, physical injury, or recovering from surgery is a great time to practice some of those mental activities. But again, we would not want to have it be something that was causing frustration for the dog, which brings us to Jacqueline's question. How important is it to set your dog up for success? If it fails to solve the puzzle, is it left frustrated?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jacqueline. I think it depends on your dog and their body language, right? If a dog is just trying to get it to it and it's walking away and coming back, and then yes, possibly the game is too hard. So maybe, you go back a couple steps, make it a little bit easier. For a dog like Finley, he loves a challenge. And sometimes if he can't get it out, he'll just, again, I have other things that he can get access for his food. But then he'll go back to it later on and get to it at some point, right? I really think it depends on your dog and their personality. And I just want to say, enrichment just doesn't involve food, right? There's a whole bunch of other categories as well. So when we're specifically talking about food enrichment, just make sure if you know your dog and their body language, if they're starting to get a little bit too frustrated, help them out, right? But give them time. There's been times where I see people, like an egg carton, let's say, you close it and the dog's struggling. We go immediately within, 30 seconds, a minute to open it up for them. Just give them a little bit of time and see what they do, right? They may, that's getting that brain working, right? They're having to problem solve, which is really great for them as well.
Absolutely. Also keep in mind that people who do feed their dogs, usually from a bowl, even a slow feeder bowl, if the dog is suddenly being given a meal, part of their meal or their whole meal in a different way, they might be a little confused.
Yeah.
You were always eating your dinner at the table and then suddenly someone said, you now have to eat it in your car while driving. You'd be like, well, okay, but that's not what I'm used to. So there is, think about ways that you can kind of bridge that gap a little bit. And maybe, like Kyla was saying, do half of their meal in their regular bowl and then add half to an enrichment item, and think about ways to make it easier and make it harder. So really good question, Jacqueline. I really love that.
And I just want to say about the bowl, I would highly recommend, if you're just new starting with enrichment with an older dog, put a bowl down and put something, a snuffle mat, a towel, something. I would put money that your dog's going to be way more interested in that game because they're using their nose versus going to a bowl, super boring, right? And their kibble's there. I had a black lab Dallas that I used to board back in the day. She was your typical lab, ate everything. And you put the bowl down, it's gone. So the one day I put a snuffle mat down and some kibble in her bowl, and I was like, $100 she's going to eat that first before she goes to the snuffle mat. I put them down and I was shocked. She was sniffing that snuffle mat, making those pig sounds as she's sniffing. And then in the video, you see her head go into the bowl, doesn't eat anything, and continues sniffing the snuffle mat. So that's when my mind was blown. I was like, okay, they just love using their nose. And I've also had some clients with picky eaters that aren't too keen on eating their food, especially in the bowl. Once they started implementing these fun enrichment ideas, their dogs are eating their kibble a lot more than they would versus just in a bowl.
Which that sounds, I remember a few years ago when I was listening to a podcast and they were discussing contra freeloading and how that's something that is very common in like zoo animals, that if you just lay it out, or if you have them hunt for it or search for it or forage for it or work for it, the animals are more likely to spend that time foraging for their food. And, there's even some scientific research that humans do the same thing. So like you said, a boring bowl, you don't have to really work for it. Like, it sounds great. Sure, it's free, it's easy, but we like the challenge. And I think that that's something to keep in mind for our companion animals as well.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara wants to know, do you especially recommend any of the puzzles that can be purchased? I bought an intermediate level one for my dog and she solved it in less than 15 seconds. Getting the kibble treats almost as quickly as she does from her bowl. Great question, Barbara. Sounds like you've got a smart dog on your hands.
Yeah, so those puzzle games are the puzzle products are great. And again, right, if it takes your dog 15 seconds, that's okay. But think about how you can maybe extend it. Maybe you take that puzzle, like I know Finley's got one with bones. There's some with like little drawers that the dogs have to sort of pull out with their paws. Some have to use their nose. It's almost like a little puzzle thing. So if you find your dog is getting through them quickly, wrap it up in a towel. So they have to get through the towel to then get through to that. Or if your dog is okay with shredding boxes, wrap that puzzle toy in a towel, then put it in the box. So then you're adding a couple extra layers of enrichment. Maybe you hide the puzzle toy in the house, so the dog has to first hunt for it and find it. So yeah, there's different ways to sort of make that one puzzle toy extend that time a little bit.
That's a really great suggestion. Speaking of, you were mentioning food and mentioning that there are other ways to offer enrichment to our dogs that don't involve food. But Pat wants to know that Pat says, I feed raw. So what are some other things besides kibble to use at meal times for enrichment?
Yeah, so raw food, that's where it's a little bit more challenging for folks, but there's a lot of great things. What do I have here next to me? Muffin tins, right? Muffin tins, you could, smear the raw food in there, maybe put something over it that, you can easily wash after. So that's an option. Topples are great. I love, love, love topples. It's all dirty. Finley had some of his breakfast in there this morning. But these are great for raw, right? You can fill that up. You can freeze it. So topples, I'd say, start investing in these. These are a great tool. It's a little bit more challenging for raw fed. But again, enrichment doesn't just involve food, right? So maybe that could be a good segue into, some of the categories. So in the first page, I included, the different categories of enrichment. So you have your toys and puzzles and food, which kind of go hand in hand. But one of my favorite enrichment is training, right? I do what's called circuit training with Finley. I'll do, puppy push-ups, sit down, sit, touch, touch, spin, spin, up, down, touch, touch. Yes, good boy. They love it. I have puppy classes going on right now, and we always do these circuits, and these 10, 12, 14, 16-week-old puppies are all sitting there pretty close to one another, but they're paying attention to their owner. They love it. They love to learn. It really helps increase that bond with you and your dog. And if I've got to tire out Finley in a short amount of time, like if I've got a day where I'm seeing clients back to back and I'm not going to be home for a long period of time, training is 100% where I go to. New environments is my second favorite, or maybe those two are almost tied. Just going to a new place, right? Yes, you go outside your house, there's lots of smells, but it's the same. So drive 5 minutes to a new park. If you and your partner are going to do groceries, bring the dog. One of you does the groceries while you walk around the grocery store, right? Those big parking lots, there's so much to smell. There's different places you can go that it's just going to be so engaging for your dog. And it doesn't have to be a dog park. It doesn't have to be an actual park. It could be like anywhere, really. Anywhere new is going to engage all of those senses. And of course, social interactions too, right? Play dates with other dogs, with other people. That's also a really great enrichment.
That's really wonderful advice. And I love the idea of how do you think outside the box? Just that simple idea of go to the grocery store with, a roommate or a partner or a friend, and one does the grocery shopping and one walks the dog. What a great idea. Because that's somewhere we don't take our dogs, is around the grocery stores probably, or running errands somewhere. So what a great suggestion.
Yep.
I'm going to bring up this question from Brian as it pertains a little bit to what we were just talking about, of maybe not just food puzzles, but also these other ideas like play dates or going to a new environment that might have the potential to be a little bit overwhelming. So when we think about harder and easier and more and less enjoyable for the dog, Brian asks, are there any signs to look for with your dog to signal something is causing anxiety or frustration versus fun? So what physical signs can we look for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that depends a lot on your dog. So perhaps some dogs will get a little bit whinier, they'll start to whine and maybe paw at the object that they're having a hard time getting it out. Some dogs may start barking, right, at the owners, being, hey, 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 I can't get this, help me out here. Some dogs may lay down. So it depends on your dog and their personality. That I would say that would be food-based games. If we're talking about, new environments, social interactions and stuff too, right? Their tail's a good barometer if it's tucked in between their legs, their ears back, mouth is closed. Those are all stress signals that maybe it's a little bit too much for them at this time. I'm big on encouraging brave behavior versus, a lot of folks think it's okay, don't be scared, you're fine, that they're comforting the dog. What you're doing in that moment is you're actually rewarding the behavior. You can't reward an emotion, but you can reward the behavior associated with the emotion. So I'm big on, oh, you're such a good boy, when they're a little bit, more brave. And it works so well in my puppy classes. There's always one or two that first week that, are all timid and shy, hiding underneath the owner's legs and chairs. I'm like, leave them. That's okay. But the minute they start walking out and being a little, yes, good boy, good girl, a lot of that praise. So if you see your dog is unsure or nervous or fearful, you're fine, you're okay. But let's say they go and smell that box, that there's food in there. Yes, good job. Those are the moments that you want to praise and reward.
Yes. And also, behavior is a study of one, as we know. So be sure you're watching your dog. There are dogs that if you go do some over the top praise, they're going to go back to, whoa.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we always
they get so excited that they're like, oh my God.
Oh, so great. So you do always want to watch your dog and see what their individual reaction is. If we think that we're rewarding them by giving them a bunch of attention and affection, and they're like, oh, that's not really something that feels good, and I don't want to do that again. So be sure that you are paying attention to your dog. Dogwise has some great resources on body language if you want to learn more about, like Kyla was mentioning, stress signals and calming signals and dog body language in general. You also can always get in touch with a canine professional near you who would, I'm sure, be happy to help you learn the subtleties of your individual dog and be able to read that barometer of, are they having a good time or not? And trust your gut a little bit. You'll know if they're engaging with their environment, if they're enjoying that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell folks too, take a video, don't set up your dog to fail. But if you are working with a trainer, or you can even, submit it on the Easy Breezy Facebook page or send me an email, and then I have to see what's really happening in that moment to sort of gauge how the dog is feeling. But when in doubt, if you can happen to capture it on video, there's a lot of people that can sort of help you decide what's happening in those moments.
Great suggestion. Great suggestion. It's such a wonderful tool in our training these days. Barbara said that she really loved your suggestion about hiding the puzzle toy and that her dog knows the cue find it, and find it games are her favorite. So Barbara, I hope that is a very helpful tip for you and for other people that are listening to this interview of, if you want to make it a little harder for your genius dog, hide the actual puzzle toy.
Yeah. And like I have here some examples. I'd say if you're going to invest in anything, I love food dispensing toys. So, these are things you just put the kibble in there, kind of like the Kong. They've got this one here where, you just put some food in there and your dog. So these, you fill them up with their breakfast or dinner, and then you hide them around the house. And then maybe you wrap a few in a towel, or you put one in a box. So those are great, great, great ones that I like to use. I had an empty gum container here. I washed it out. But this is another great one. Depending on your dog, you can just, keep the lid open. Your dog's got to move that around. Again, this is easy enough to hide somewhere. Hide and seek is actually one of my favorite games to play with Finley as well. I'll just have him do a sit stay in the kitchen, and I'll go hide somewhere in the house. This is a great recall game that I recommend for clients, right? Because your dog's seeking you out. And but Finley's got to use his nose, he's got to sniff around the house. If you do play hide and seek, I always recommend, especially at the beginning, hide behind a chair. You release your dog, go find her, go find him. Yes, good boy. And then you can start to make it harder and harder. But there's been times where Finley's had a hard time finding me. So what I'll do is I'll blow my breath, right? Because those 200, 300 million scent receptors is going to pick up that scent trail pretty quickly. And then he'll usually find me. Now he knows all my hiding spots in the house. So our hide and seek games tend to not last too long, but I'll just do it 3, 4, 5 times in a row. And he's so happy. I have the talking buttons, and he'll actually hit the hide and seek button. And then I'll be like, you want to play hide and seek? And he'll run into the kitchen and sit on his mat, because he knows that's the starting point. So yeah.
What an amazing form of communication. And I really love how you are thinking about this from the dog's perspective. I think that my inclination, and probably most of ours, would be if our dog's having a hard time, to call them or make a noise so they could hear you, which of course they would be able to do. But when you're really trying to get them to use their nose to find you, the idea of, providing a little more scent for them, what a great, great concept. I love that idea.
Yeah. I grew up in Northern Ontario, and my dad and his brother had a pheasant farm. So they had tons of labs and pointers, and we would teach the dogs how to find the birds in the field. So growing up, I was so fascinated by that, seeing these dogs, go out into these fields, have no idea where these birds are hidden, and then, can go and sit there and track them and point, and then, boom, there's the bird. And I was always fascinated by that. And I think, especially with Finley, he's got a very high prey drive. Our last walk of the night, I walk Finley on a 15-foot leash, and it's basically show me. And he just tells me where he wants to go, basically. But our last walk of the night, it's always the same route. We go to this little community center because there's always rabbits. But you see him, like he's tracking those scent trails, and he's going, and he absolutely loves it. And I just love seeing him sort of doing what he was bred to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Letting our dogs be dogs. What a great thing to have that opportunity. I'm going to share Sarah's comment. If anyone else has any last minute questions, feel free to drop them in the comments box for us. Sarah said, I had to laugh at your comment about working in finance and being so tired at the end of the day. Just had that conversation with one of my coworkers this morning. Also, the reason I decided to make a career change and enroll in a dog training course. Sarah, that is wonderful. Congratulations for making the jump. It's a big, scary jump, but we can attest it is worth it. It is a very enriching career. And I think that I did want to draw attention to the fact that this book is not just for dog trainers and dog professionals. This book is for anybody. Anyone can pick up this book and read it and have, like you said, 50 ideas of things to do with your dog. And this is not a hard read. It's supposed to be easy and accessible. And I appreciate that you've provided this resource for professionals and dog guardians alike as well. We do have another comment from Barbara saying, I had an Irish setter who not only played seeker, but also understood the role of hider. I would count to 20 very loudly. She would rush to a closet or other hiding place and stay there till you found her. She was
That's
amazing.
great.
Enrichment story. Barbara, you have some really smart dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I do have a few extra little ideas here, like some of them in the book. Billie Jean, these were an old pair of work jeans for me. So this, think of all the places you can throw some kibble in the pockets, folding it up different ways. Again, you can throw this in a box. I've got this empty, I think it was coffee that was in here. So, right, you can then put some kibble in there, put the jeans that's full of kibble in here, close that up. Your dog has to figure out how to get that open, find that out. I'm always looking at the free cycle sites. I don't know where you are, but in Ottawa, there's a lot of people that post on these sites, and everything's free. So there's been a few things, like I got this cute little, it's for Christmas, like you put like little pockets for food. So I just lay that on the ground, and Finley will go and sniff in all the pockets. Guaranteed, you walk around your house and you're going to find so many things. Another one is, I'm sure lots of people have this, is a jewelry. You put all your jewelry in there and it hangs up. It's another great little place where you can go and hide some kibble and some treats in there. And there's just, there's so many things. And then there's this one cute one that I got for free too, is all like, again, kind of like that same concept with the, what do you call that? With the chocolates, with the calendars, but these are all little boxes. So what I do with these little boxes is I'll put treats in one of them and remember the number. And when Finley finds it, it's almost like a scent class, right? He identifies the box, and then I'll give him a treat in my hand so that he doesn't ruin all these cute little boxes that I have. But there's just so much stuff that you can use around your house. Amazon, like think about all that paper and you get in your Amazon stuff, right? You can fold this up in different ways. You
also get that paper in your Dogwise boxes when we
ship
you paper
Advent calendar. Thank you, Sandra. Advent calendar. That was the word I was trying to think of.
I love that idea. Just all of your ideas of kind of upcycling things, even down to paper towel and toilet paper rolls or empty toothpaste, cardboard, pretty much if you're going to put it in the recycling bin, can you recycle it with your dog first?
Exactly. Everything I go to throw in the recycle bin, I get at least a couple rounds with Finley for his meals, and then it gets thrown out.
Yeah, that's spectacular. And I think that creativity is the name of the game when it comes to this. And you've given us a great start with all of the ideas in this book. I'm so glad and grateful for you joining us today. Sandra is asking about the talking buttons. I did want to say that we had scheduled an interview with the author of How Stella Learned to Talk, who was the person who really brought the talking buttons to the forefront of our dog world in the last couple of years. And so, Sandra, if you tune back in later, we're going to have a conversation just about talking buttons. But if you want to answer that question briefly, Kyla, or just talk about how you've used them with Finley, that would be great.
So with Finley, like when I had Breeze, I would ask her, I'm like, show me, what do you want? And she was really good to sort of, whether she was hungry, wanted to go outside, wanted to play. But Finley would just stand there and stare at me. And like I adopted Finley at 2. So, I didn't get him as a puppy. And I was like, show me. And he'd just sit there and stare at me like, come on, read my mind. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to introduce the buttons. And again, Finley's so intelligent. It didn't take me long at all. I ended up, I think, started off with 5 buttons. So it was like play, snuggle, outside, and circuits. I didn't want to put a food one or a treat because I know he would just press that all the time. So circuit would be, sit down, sit, touch. So at least he's working for those treats. So it just gave me an opportunity for him, he'll just go and tell me, okay, I want to play right now. And then he'll look at his toy box and like, good job. Or if he wants snuggles and he's like on his back and wants some belly rubs. But you're going to laugh if you scroll through some old videos on Easy Breezy Facebook page. I did introduce one that has a swear word. It's called the B. I call it the B button. So it's basically, calling me that word. And I'd seen other dogs do this, and I was like, oh my God, I have to show him that. And he knows how to use it in the right context. If I'm not giving him attention, if I'm ignoring him, if I'm busy doing something, he'll run into the living room and be so it makes me laugh. And I just love those talking buttons, because it was just such a great way to help me learn what Finley wants, because he wasn't showing me otherwise. There's some great other dogs out there like Bunny and I can't remember the other dog's name, that their vocabulary is so huge. But I think, yeah, I think it's so good. Such a great tool to introduce to your dog.
The thing that fascinates me about the original dog, Stella, the owner of that dog she's not a dog trainer. She's a speech pathologist.
Okay.
So in her book, she talks about, like, I'm not a dog trainer. I gave these buttons to my dog in the same way that I would to a child who was struggling with language. So the way she introduced the words, whether it's a noun or a verb or a request or something, was really intentional. And, now it's like, it's so easy. You just go on Amazon and you get, a starter kit of buttons, and you can just go, or you can program your own. But what an amazing thing that we're having the opportunity to start having a two-way dialogue with our dogs in a language we understand.
I know, it's so amazing. And I have a friend that's renting a room from me right now, and she's like, Kyla, I didn't really believe in those buttons and that Finley really knows how to use them. But she's like, oh my God, he knows exactly what he wants and how to use those buttons.
Yes, communication is key. Absolutely. Yeah. For those of you asking about the interview with Christina Hunger is her name, the author of How Stella Learned to Talk, keep an eye on our Facebook page. We do have some interviews coming up. We do not have that one scheduled now. We had it scheduled, and then they welcomed a baby into their home, which rescheduled our interview a few months ago. So we're waiting till their lives settle down to reschedule that interview. Diane wants to know what the talking buttons are called. Do you know where you got yours? If you Google, if you look at How Stella Learned to Talk, or the website for her is hungerforwords.com. She has starter kits. You can also go on Amazon and just get recordable. They're called like buzzer buttons or answer buttons. But if you Google talking dog buttons, you're going to find a lot of information. Fluent Pet is the one that's funny. Bunny the dog, and I think there's a couple of cats that are spokes animals for that brand, but the Fluent is another one that comes pre-recorded, so you can look those up. Also, Joanne wanted to share that about raw-fed dogs, you can also use freeze-dried food, different quality freeze-dried products for your enrichment items as well, which is a great suggestion, in addition to Kyla's suggestions to find things that are easy to clean. So, great. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining us. Kyla, can you tell people a little bit more about where they can find you if they have more questions or want to get in touch?
Absolutely.
So we want to make sure that everyone knows that this book, Brain Games for Your Dog, is available both in a paperback and an ebook format at dogwise.com. But Kyla, if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, best place would be either my Facebook page, Easy Breezy Dogs, or my website, easybreezydogs.com. I'm also on Instagram. You can send me a message there. Even though I'm in Ottawa, I've done virtual training. If anybody is, looking for a trainer, I provide virtual training. I also just released some online courses. So I have my sort of mini package called Save Your Sanity, which is all for puppies. And then I have my bigger course, which is what all my clients get access to, my Learn on Your Own, Save Your Sanity. But you can follow me online, and I'm always available for questions if anyone has any questions that they need answers to.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. We will see you all next time.
Perfect. Thanks, Erica.